All right, so what are your day one plans as president and vice president?
Yeah, so kicking everything off, the first thing that we have to focus on is getting our executive cabinet together. So that's 8 people who are going to be supporting us, venturing with us, leading the organization as a whole. I think we have some good insight right now on that. I'm an executive officer myself, so I help lead the organization. But I think putting that team together is going to be like the number one thing that we focus on at least this week.
Because that really kind of sets up the office culture for the year, the USG culture for the year. It's an incredibly important part of what kind of helps make USG what it is, and making sure that we're having the right people there representing the USG values, representing our values, and just to ensure that can have the greatest success next year as possible.
And what were some of the challenges that you guys faced during your campaign?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the biggest thing that we kind of had going against us was the fact that we're friends with all the other running mates. There were a lot of internal tickets this year. There were a lot of people who are from USG who we've worked with, who are friends with, or who have been our friends since we started at USC. I think keeping the politicalness and the kind of neutrality of the election steady was really, really important, to kind of divide like the race from our friend group in our friendships. That was really hard, and it was really tenuous at a lot of different points, but I think we were able to do that.
Yeah, and I think also it's just a massive time commitment at the end of the day. We started this process December 13th when our intent to run was due, and from then it just was, building our team, and then from there launching the campaign and so forth. And we met with over 70 student organizations here on campus, so the meetings the team and constantly just being together. And I think that while like phenomenal as it was, it's a huge time commitment, and kind of everything else, all our other obligations kind of got, pushed to the side to some extent, and that this essentially was like our full-time job, and everything else was on the side, which was really difficult.
Yeah, but also really, really enlightening. All those organization meetings were really, really great, because I think one of the big things that you do in student leadership is you don't really go out all that often. You don't talk to people. We want to change that, obviously, in the engagement tour that we're going to have in the next few months. But really, like, going out there, meeting a lot of people that we never would have met, being in rooms that we never would have been in if not for running, was really, really enlightening.
And what are some problems you see yourself facing in the future, and how are you going to tackle those problems?
Yeah.
I think obviously there's a lot of unpredictability coming our way in the next year. I think what happens in the 2020 election on the federal level, I think, is going to play a really big part on this campus and could go a lot of different ways, and that will definitely be a huge challenge we're anticipating to having to tackle. And so right now we're already starting to brainstorm, like, all the different scenarios that could be happening. How do we make sure people are supported, that they're being heard, that people are, getting the proper resources and support? I think that's just something that will be probably something that most colleges across the country are going to have to deal with, is what's going to be happening in the next election.
And then I think one of the big things that came up this cycle was that USG is not doing enough in terms of outreach, in terms of communication, in terms of being open and transparent to the student body about what we're working on, how we're providing value to the student body. We want to change that. We're trying to figure out how we actually do that. And I think one of the big things that we're going to focus on is getting USG more ingrained into student culture, whether it's individual students, whether it's recognized student organizations, whether it's doing more meetings with student communities. We feel that USG has underrepresented or neglected a lot of groups on campus. So we're working to be able to hopefully change that next year.
And since mental health is becoming such a big issue, especially at USC, what do you guys plan to do to better campus wellness?
Yeah, the number one thing that we need to focus on as a community or as a university is funneling more money to the Student Health Center. We've said it time and time again throughout the last 2 months, but USC is a business. It is a corporation. It does not put money towards departments that don't earn revenue. That being student affairs, student activities, student health. Making sure that is a priority from a budget standpoint as well as a culture standpoint is really, really important as we go to the next year and beyond.
And what is one problem that you guys hope to solve before you graduate?
Excuse me. I think there's a lot of,
Tough one.
I think Truman's point about kind of ingraining USG into the culture, I think we recognize that this is something that's going to be happening over years and years to come, and I think next year our goal is to kind of put USG like in a position so that it can move forward with that goal successfully. I think just evaluating our goals that we have as part of our vision as the student experience is changing and so forth, what are things that we can happen within our 1 year and what can happen within like a long-term advocacy work, because we recognize that in USG a lot of these successful programs, fall break, free lift, the health, like the wellness vending machine, these were things that took a long time. And so I think that's something we're going to have to be negotiating with and understanding for ourselves is what can we do this year and what can we do, what is something that we're going to have to set up for 5 years down the road.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is tangible that we can get done this year is implementing student advisory councils, student advisory groups for different on-campus departments and offices. I think Folt and Chris have both expressed interest that they are willing to bring the same model that they had at UNC Chapel Hill to USC. I think that they are willing to do it, and I think they're ready to get started on it now that they've been kind of settled in their new positions. We just need to make sure that they're actually following through with them.
And I think our sustainability goals are also
I think
setting these sustainability goals I think is absolutely something we'll be able to do.
So that's quickly. 3 different that's 3 projects, but I think those are all, I think a lot of what we are talking about this year is very, very attainable, at least for next year.
And what do you think is USC's role in relation to the South LA community?
Oh yeah, that's a great question.
Going beyond campus.
Yeah, and I don't think that's talked enough in the cycle. I think USC needs to be a better neighbor to its community. I think we have really, really aggressive expansion plans, and we want to be able to, heighten our own standard of living, but we aren't paying attention enough to the standard of living of our surrounding community, whether it's paying our contract workers fair wages, whether it's making sure that we are hiring locally, contracting locally, making sure that we are supporting our community through and through is really, really important, and I don't think we're doing enough as a university or as a student body to be able to do that.
Okay. And how do you plan to continue the efforts of past USG Senates while prioritizing your own initiatives?
I think I'm a senator right now currently in USG, and so I've been able to watch all this incredible work that my fellow 11 senators have been doing, which has just been phenomenal. And so I think that's something that we'll be kind of beginning these conversations with them in the coming days to discuss like how can we support their visions moving forward. There's also a new Senate class coming in, and so how can these new senators support their visions moving forward? I think it's just having these open dialogues and conversations in regards to acknowledging where these projects stemmed from, who was spearheading them, and then ensuring as now President and Vice President that these are actually coming true, because they are such incredible projects that will have such a massive impact on the student body here and the student experience. And I personally just, as a senator right now, I feel personal investment in making sure that these all happen.
Yeah, I think Rose and I have a lot of altitude on what's going on in the organization as a whole right now. As a head of communications, as a senator, I think we have insight into what's going on. Being able to make sure that is actually continued on during our administration, as well as prioritizing our objectives, is a key factor that we have to deal with in any administrative turnover. One of the ways that we plan to do that is by implementing the first ever policy strategy plan, which is basically going to hash out all the different projects and all the different initiatives and all the different things that it's going on inside the organization, whether it's through Senate, whether it's through our advocacy branch, whether it's through our respective programming groups. Being able to have a concrete document of who's working on what, and then how we're going to continue that on next year, and like what's our strategy for that is going to be really, really important. I think that's one of the most concrete ways that we can kind of make sure that the administrative turnover doesn't necessarily mean that we're losing all these important projects.
And what impact do you hope that your presidency will have, not only now, but for this year and years after you graduate?
I think going back to that idea of having USG ingrained in the student culture is really, really important. If there's anything that we can do, it's like Rose and I acting as like as a figurehead and as a connector and as people who are out there in the community engaging with students on a student-to-student level, making sure that we have those connections and those communications channels in place is going to be really, really important to a successful presidency, no matter who's in office. I think setting up those channels, making sure that USG is actually reaching out proactively instead of reactively to the student community is going to be really, really important. But most of all, I think just small tasks and small efforts that we can make to improve student life is going to be the best. We're working on a spaces proposal right now to redefine and enhance Ground Zero, the Tudor Campus Center, the Village Piazza, making sure that those spaces are like accessible for students, and that they are, you know, contributing to student well-being and building community is really important. That's a small task that we can kind of accomplish next year, that can have a huge difference in the way that people interact with their community.
Well, thank you so much. I look forward to everything you guys are going to do in your next coming year.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.